I didn't realize actually until I started coaching and found this world of, these empaths and people who were not judgmental. It's like, oh, wow, there's a whole side of the world that exists that I didn't even know of people that are not going to judge you based on these things, that don't believe mental illness is a dirty little secret.
Well, you had to go find them.
Yes, yes, no, 100%. But, and again, it's a choice. It's like, I can choose to keep perpetuating this, path that I've been taking and these patterns, or I can choose something new. And, just starting to pay attention to like, okay, who is out there, and seeing who's supporting me, and who, and who's there that I can say all this stuff that like I'm judging myself about, and they're not judging me. And they're not saying like, yeah, you're broken, something's wrong with you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Temple Podcast. I'm Ed Pasquale, martial artist and licensed massage therapist, and I am here with Michelle Lazar today. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I think it's going to be very poignant and important, especially for the uncertain times that we're in and what could potentially be circulating through people's heads. I feel like a lot of what's going on right now may prevent people from feeling that they can speak out about themselves, as there is so much civil unrest and so much happening in our world that making it about you potentially when it needs to be can seem difficult. But it all of it ultimately boils down to the individual, and which is where I'll let you come in and just tell your story.
Okay. Sure. I'm like, okay, where do I start? So I'll start with the important facts. So 14 years ago, my husband passed away. He died by suicide after suffering from mental illness. He had been diagnosed a couple of years before that with bipolar disorder and a form of schizophrenia. So essentially he was, having the mood swings between depression and mania and hearing voices all at the same time, which is a lot. Sadly, by the time he got the diagnosis, it was pretty advanced. And then, they go through all the medication trials, all of that is what happens in our society when there's a mental health diagnosis. We're a little bit of guinea pigs because they can't just open our brain and go, okay, there's a chemical imbalance of this and this, and here's what you need to take. So
Right.
They put you on a couple of different cocktails because it's never just one pill. They kept trying, meds weren't working, he was getting worse, and essentially he took his life. And to make matters worse, we grew up in the same community. We knew each other since we were 8, high school sweethearts, got married at 22. So here we are at the ripe old age of, I was 34, he was 35. And now I'm widowed, and the family, essentially, because, our community didn't talk about mental health, or mental illness, they don't talk about suicide, that's all kind of swept under the rug. So the decision was made at the time, like within hours after he died, of, let's say he died in an accident. And so for the next 10 plus years, I carried this secret around with me. I had, at the time, my kids were 7 and 4, and, I made the justification that like, well, I don't understand how he did this. And, how do I tell these kids? Like they don't understand, my little one was 4. He didn't even understand what it meant to be dead. Like when I told him, daddy's gone, he's like, oh, is he a mummy like on Scooby-Doo? Like thinking his dad's now wrapped up in toilet paper walking around,
Right.
like that. Like he just didn't get it. So, to explain a suicide to a kid that age didn't feel right to me. So I made that justification, but, it took its toll. It took a huge toll on me carrying that secret and that lie around.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I can't even imagine the weight of that and having to carry on, you know, having to continue. I feel like
Yeah.
you're an exceptional case because most people would crumble under that
Mm.
pressure. I feel like a lot of people would break under that pressure. What is it that kept you? Now I understand your children, but the sad fact is that we can't just chalk it up to just having kids, because I see so many cases of that just not being enough.
Oh yeah.
So what was it that helped you carry that weight? Was it support
Oh.
system? Was it treatment? Was it therapy?
Carrying the secret.
Yes.
I went into autopilot. That's what helped me. That was really it. I shut everything down. You know,
Kind of like Click on Fast Forward. Remember that movie Click with Adam Sandler, where he'd hit
yeah.
fast forward on the remote control and he was on autopilot through his life and
Yes.
not really there?
Yes, that was me. I was completely detached. Like, you know, because how do you live your life thinking like I'm a good, honest person, knowing full well that I am lying to the entire world? Like some of my closest friends don't know the truth, you know, or, you know, they may have suspected, but they certainly were not going to ask me.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I'm betraying them. I'm betraying myself. Like it's very hard to live that way. It's easier to just, you know, shut down. I mean, not easier because there was nothing easy about it, but that's how I did it.
Oh, yeah, but you wanna fall. You know, you wanna stop. It has to be the same kind of thing as like when you're on like a long hike or a long run where you wanna stop, but you
Yeah,
just keep going, and eventually the pain numbs, and then you
right.
feel it again, and then it
Exactly.
numbs, and then you feel it
Yeah,
again, and it never really goes away. It's just
right.
something that you can compartmentalize for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. And like, you know, and I love that analogy of like, you know, you go numb and then you feel it. And I think for me, the feeling it showed up in subsequent relationships I tried to have and um, you know, other areas of my life where I then just chose to betray myself and would feel, you know, this is wrong. And you know, and so, but then it was like, yeah, don't go there, don't feel, don't, you know, don't open up that Pandora's box. You might never be able to close it again. So it was like, okay, just keep it shut. But, you know, it affected my mental health too. I ended up, you know, depressed. Like, I mean, yeah, like I think about 6 months after he died, I spent a whole month in bed. Like I would drive my kids to school in my pajamas, drop them off, go home, spend all day in bed, and then pick them up from school. We'd order in, and I mean, luckily they were little, so we all just went to bed early, like 7:30, 8 o'clock, we were all in bed. So, you know, and then there were subsequent times where I also had these kinds of issues. And it was so interesting because a couple of years ago, when I finally actually, because I'd never had the official diagnosis of depression. And then a couple of years ago, you know, I was not an entrepreneur at this point. I was sleeping all the time. I went to my doctor. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm depressed. And she was like, okay, let's do some blood work. And it came back and she was like, do you know that you have antibodies for 2 different types of mono? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you've had mono twice in your life. And I was so used to like being exhausted all the time and not letting myself feel that I actually had mono and had no idea anything was different.
So you didn't
Twice.
even notice.
Nope.
I remember
Twice.
I had mono when I was a kid and I was miserable and in bed for 2 weeks. So you didn't just nothing changed. It was
Nothing
just
changed.
probably a crappier couple of weeks where you ate a little bit more Chinese food.
Yeah, who knows? But
Yeah.
twice, not even just once. And I'm like, oh my God, that was a sign of like, wow, this bad. You know?
It's incredible that you can look back on it now and laugh, however, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
most people who could be potentially listening to this
Mm-hmm.
in the thick of it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, in the thick of it, that seems almost, um, what's the words I'm thinking of? Like to get past the guilt and
Yeah.
to move on from how you felt, or I'm sorry, but to move on from how you're feeling in the moment when you're in
Yeah.
the thick of that depression
Yeah.
almost makes you feel guilty. I feel like that's the sentence that came in backwards in my head.
Right.
But that's what almost makes you, you know, you feel guilty to feel better, or to even potentially be able to look back on situations like that and laugh about how
Yeah.
bad it was because of how much better things are now.
Yeah, I don't feel any guilt for feeling happy. I think we all deserve to feel happy. I think, yeah, we often, and I know from, I'll speak for myself for, many years, and just, this is from childhood stuff. Cause like, of course it didn't just start with the suicide. It was older stuff, but just even like the idea of like what we deserve and do we deserve happiness? And so, yeah, the guilt comes when we somehow feel like we don't deserve that. And that was, a big piece of the work that I needed to do around it, of just like, you know what, I actually do deserve happiness. And that was, a big piece of my wake up call was, and I know I'm kind of all over the place, but when I had started doing my coaches training and, I was still keeping the secret at that time. And, I did this course over this weekend. It was a big eye opener for me. And at the end of the weekend, one of the instructors is giving his like inspirational words. And he's like, don't just tolerate life. And it was like, oh my God, like it was like somebody just like smacked me in the chest of just like, I'm tolerating everything. Like I was in a relationship that was so unhealthy. I was in a job that I wasn't happy in, all because I didn't think I deserved better than that. And so it was just like, oh, you want to love me? Okay, sure. Like, I don't know what's wrong with you for wanting to love me, but okay. And then, that was not a fun experience, clearly. And then being in a job for more than 10 years that, on the surface seemed great. It was secure. I learned a lot. It was like, I'm a single mom. Who am I to like dream? I should just be grateful that I have this job. And, but not actually like daring to think like, what do I want to do? It was like, I have to keep this job because there's security, there's stability, and, and a paycheck. And, who am I to want more? So that mindset was something that, keeps the guilt going about so many things. And I think that's really what drives most of our guilt, of feeling like, oh, my happiness, is not deserved or wrong.
So now you had said that you and your husband were high school sweethearts. So you had known each other. How old were you when you met?
8.
8?
8. Yes.
So you were friends growing up, and then you guys became.
Yeah, we knew each other, kind of went to the same camp, had, went to, schools that were close by, had lots of mutual friends. And we, throughout high school kind of kept running into each other. And then one of his close friends started dating one of my close friends. So the 4 of us just started hanging out. And then, it just like, okay, and now we're a couple. Yeah.
So, and now, so by the time he passed away, you were 34, you had said?
Yeah.
So you had lived most of your life. So
yeah, we had been together 16 years.
Yeah,
by
wow.
34. Like that, it's a crazy number when I think about it now.
Yeah, your relationship is a high school junior.
Yeah.
So when you put it in terms like that, it's insane to think like a person can go from infancy in the same time span. A person can go from infancy to about to go to college. You know what I mean? We look at that as like a lifetime.
Yeah.
So you had clearly fabricated your identity around this relationship. He was part of who you were, or who you are.
Yes.
Right. So now the depth of what happened to you in that numbness, when did you start trying to find yourself again? How long was it before you had like started to put yourself back out there and try to start putting yourself together, even though the decisions may not have been healthy ones, but
Right. Pretty early on. It was so interesting because, by this point, most of our friends, or pretty much all our friends, were married. So now here I am, the single person. So all my married friends are like, we're going to get you married again. It was like, yeah, let's. Like, all I know is how to be married or in a couple. So yeah, it was only a few months after he died. And, I think back to like the guys who dated me, and it was just like, oh my God, what was driving you to want to go out with a woman who was like clearly still in shock? But, no judgment on their end, because like, even I wasn't thinking that at the time, but I was totally still in shock at the point that I started going out.
Now, do you think that that was like, this is, no opinion behind it whatsoever, just for the sake of conversation.
Yeah.
Do you think that was the healthy route to take? Or
Oh,
should
hell
you?
no.
Yeah. I feel like
No, no, it was
absolutely
just
not, right?
complete
No.
denial of like, okay, I'm not dealing with how he died. Maybe I can just not even deal with him
Him being
dying, and I
gone,
can,
right.
yeah, like, and that was a thing too. Like my older son, who was like all 7 years of age, one of the first things he said after my husband died was just like, can you get us a new dad? Because he didn't want to be different from all his friends. Like his friends had divorced parents who didn't live together, but everyone had a mom and a dad.
Right.
And so he just wanted that back again. And I think I kind of had that same mindset of just like, let's just get me married again and move on.
I can relate to him on that level, because I never had a father. I never met my dad. So like, it's rough in school when you have one parent, and kids speculate, and kids make theories, and kids talk shit, and kids bully and make fun of,
Yeah.
So regardless of the situation, there's always going to be that one, because how like there are shitty people, they start as shitty kids,
Right.
like that's
Right.
the unfortunate
Right.
truth, is like,
Yeah.
there's always going to be those people, those kids,
Yeah.
young adult or even younger, that are going to say terrible things and really
Oh, yeah.
hurt somebody.
Oh, yeah.
So all kids are really looking for is the ability to blend in, like normalcy.
Right.
Normalcy, a complete family unit. They can feel that support, you know what I mean? So it's not even like a replacement. It's like somebody new, next chapter, let's go, move on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was in that same place of like, boom, let's just move through this and keep going. And then I don't need to deal with the lie, because I'll be remarried. My kids will have a stepdad, and we can just make all of that go away.
And then I feel like everything kind of boils down to this, like, like I use martial arts as a metaphor for a lot of things. Like, I've been training for just over 8 years, and I feel like I'm just starting to get the basics. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just starting to like internalize them. Like I was talking to my Sifa one day, and he's like, how many of your kicks do you feel comfortable with? And I'm like, one. Of all the kicks that I've practiced, I have one kick on one side of my body that I feel good about.
Right.
That I know I could use. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And even then it's like, maybe, And I feel like just that amount of effort is what it takes. So while it may not have been the healthiest decision to jump right back into the dating pool, the decade that it took for you to then decide to go public and to come out of the shell, I feel is a normal time span. Like that's not that long. Like that might even be quick. You know what I mean? People really, really want the instantaneous fix.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to go along for the ride.
Right.
They want the Instagram highlight reel.
Right. Oh yeah. We don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah. No.
For sure.
We don't want to do the hard work. I want to only post cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like
we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you post the crappy real stuff, then it's like, oh, like they're so dramatic. And that's the thing. And that's what perpetuates all of the stigma that we have. It's like all this judgment that everybody's holding around, the real things. Like I can't even say like, the not, the bad stuff. Like it's just real. Like
it's
life
reality.
is not all, rainbow and butterflies and unicorns.
Right. It's reality, and people use words as weapons. And the issue with that is George Carlin has I think he's a comedian when you just start recirculating, because all his stuff, even though like his 80s and 90s stuff is old, it's still poignant. And it's like the way trends come back again, the issues he was talking about is happening again. He talks smack about the baby boomers, like trying to fix their lives. And like, I see it now with me, with like Generation X, trying to like put I don't know if I'm X or millennial. I'm like on the cusp. I'm 89. Okay. So like, I'm kind of in between those two. And I see all those people. It's like everybody, it's like, dude, I saw you doing lines off a bathroom sink when we were in high school. And they are like, they have 2 kids now. You know what I mean? And they're trying to just be hunky-dory. Like, I just go to work and I do my job and I love my wife and I love my kids. And they're just trying to be these normal people who vote and make decisions. And it's like, and they were these people. And now after all this time, it's like, how many people are just kind of pretending or virtue signaling or don't really know what's going on, don't really know who they are. But remember, if you're online, you have to be a political analyst and you have to pay attention to what people are saying and you have to be accepted and you can't put out there, you can't put reality out there because then you're attention seeking. Right. You're an attention whore. You're an attention, whatever word you want to use.
No, but they're all used. And that's the thing. And the words are used, they're judgmental words.
And that's the whole point of the George Carlin skit that I had brought up is he talks about it. If you Google George Carlin euphemisms, I think there's a clip of it underneath. And he just talks about how words have no power. You assign the power to them. Yes. And he uses that with racial slurs and everything too. He's like, it's just a word. It sounds out of your mouth. Right. It's the shitty people behind them that are the problem that you have to ignore. Yeah. You have to not pay attention to that. If putting on Twitter how you're feeling and the one person that sends you a message because of it is what you needed that day, then whatever, do what you're going to do. Right. As long as it's genuine. You know what I mean? As long as it's genuine, which I feel like it's very difficult to sift through all those feelings. So you had said you had jumped right back into kind of trying to move on and live your life and not making the healthiest decisions. What did that time span between making that decision to okay, there's nothing I can do to change the past. I have to just move forward. And this is the narrative I'm taking to protect my children. Here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put these walls up and I'm going to block myself from everything around me and just barrel forward. What went from that to I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to, make amends and be honest or make amends with me and be honest about what happened and start to try to help other people?
Yeah, great question. It was a series of events that all happened very close together that really kind of pointed me in the direction of you are betraying yourself and recognizing it was me making the choices. I could blame everybody around me, but at the end of the day, I was choosing this. And, I had been in and out of therapy, over the course of the 10 years. I had had a few relationships and then literally, I'd be in a relationship for a couple of years and then take another 2-3 years off just to oh my God, what the hell was that? And do the work around that. And so, so it was all around my 45th birthday, it's talking about midlife crisis. This was my midlife crisis or awakening, whichever way you want to look at it. But I had just turned 45. I was in this very unhealthy relationship. It's interesting because at the beginning of the relationship, I had told him my truth and he had shared with me something that he had been through. And it was okay, he gets me. He understands. He's been through his own shit. Now I realize we were just trauma bonded, which is the worst foundation you can have for any kind of relationship.
Oh, I can tell you from experience, my friend. Yes, that
right.
It is not. It's hey, we're both fucked up. Really? Right. Let's just feed into that so we can validate each other's fucked upness. You know what I mean?
And project our own fucked upness onto each other.
Yes.
And blame each other for what's going wrong.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Very, very perfectly designed. And
it's an atom bomb.
Yeah.
It's just fission,
Yeah. And
then when you're apart, you love each other. And then when you're together, you can't stand each other.
Yeah.
And then you're apart, you're texting each other, I miss you, I can't wait to see you. And then you get together and you're like, what the hell are you doing here?
Right. Yeah. And many other horrible things in between.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's another episode.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh.
So yeah, it came to this point where something had happened to me and I thought I could turn to my partner for support in it. And he made it very clear he was unavailable for my stuff. As he put it, I was hard to love because I had a childhood thing that resurfaced.
Well, that's not a very nice thing to hear. That's something that you can attach,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
attach that to yourself,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, I must be hard to love, and then you
Right.
believe it.
Yeah. And then really, like, for me, the bottom was at like I say, this rock bottom, because I had a few. I don't learn from just one. It's like I need more proof. But yeah, so I was a mess. I was crying, and he started laughing at me, and that's when it was just like, oh my God, who am I in a relationship? Like, what the hell is going on? And like, we had actually been in therapy, which is ironic too, because like, when you're with somebody for a year, you shouldn't need therapy. I, thought, oh, maybe it's a good idea. When he was talking about it, it was like, oh, okay, well, deal with our own stuff with a therapist and then we can move forward. But no, it was something that was so broken from the beginning. There was no fixing it. And a couple of therapists that we had worked with kind of pulled me aside and had even said like, yeah, like, rethink this one. And I didn't. Because again, like, I didn't think I was worthy of love. I felt like I was, this liar, and I didn't deserve better. So it was just like, yeah, but he's willing to be here. So I'm just going to stick this out. But then I reached a point when he started laughing at me, when I was like in all this pain, it was like, I'm choosing to be here. And so, yeah, I can say he's doing horrible stuff to me, but I'm still choosing not to walk away. And so that's when I committed to myself that, like, okay, I need to do a deep, deep dive into therapy. I have to work through this stuff, because even if I leave this relationship, I'm just going to move into another one that's going to be like same story, different guy. So, and I was not willing to do that anymore. It was just like, I'm done. So yeah, did trauma therapy, EMDR, somatic work. Like, it was just like, get this shit out of me. Like, this was the deep work that, like, I had been avoiding, and that many of us do avoid. But I came to this decision that, like, however hard it is to do the work that I'm about to do, it's not going to be any harder than the life that I am choosing for myself right now. And so I'm going to do this for me. And this was the first time I actually chose me over anybody else.
And that's the ego battle, right? That's the proverbial battle of the ego that people talk about. We often confuse confidence with being egotistical, or having a belief that, like, what if you are special? You know what I mean? What if you do have skills and talents? I mean, look, you can definitely say it's ego driven. That anybody who would start their own show or want to be a speaker.
Yeah.
But really what it is, it's like knowing that you have the ability to have these meaningful conversations and then put them out there for other people to enjoy, learn from, or just be entertained by.
Yeah.
And wanting to be able to give that to the world.
Yeah.
That's an example of confidence. That's an example of confidence in your ability to go do. Now, when you're talking about trauma and stuff like that, this is stuff that's like, like, I got cheated on. That's emasculating. So that pops up in my relationship now, where I'll be like, like, do you love me? And she's like, shut up. That is the most unattractive shit you could possibly do. And that's what I need to hear.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't need, like, I love you, because I don't believe that. It's like you said, you don't learn from the one rock bottom. When you give me what I want, I still don't believe you.
Right.
That's the thing. The validation doesn't actually do anything. It just reaffirms that, like, I need to keep asking the question because I'm not getting the answer I'm looking for. Because while it's comfortable to be coddled, it doesn't do anything for you. Sometimes you need to be slapped. Like, it sounds mean, but it's like, no, if it sounds mean to you, then you probably couldn't handle it yourself. And you need to get to a point where you're emotionally capable of being able to handle that kind of, like, like, wake up to reality, get with the program, like, time to get to work, because the work is where freedom lies,
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, you're talking about coddling. I'm like, there was no coddling either. But that was the thing. It was just, it was just realizing like, wow, I'm the one that keeps doing this to myself. Like same story, different guy.
Right.
And realizing like, you know what, I need to choose me. Like it's not ego, it's survival. It's like, I'm
So
going to die an early death if I keep living this way.
right. So you had said that there was no coddling. So is it more the adverse, where it was more just like kind of poking fun at you having issues?
Not poking fun until that point, but a lot of projection and
Mm-hmm.
telling me I needed to fix myself, that I was the cause of all of our relationship challenges.
Right.
And
Okay.
me
Okay.
believing that because, well, yeah, I'm, you know, because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you know, like I had, you know, an emotionally abusive childhood. So I was already told as a kid that like everything was my fault. So this fit perfectly into my belief system of like, oh yeah, it must be my fault. Like, I know everything's my fault. Like,
So
you
you have
know,
blamed
my,
yourself for everything. Had you also,
right.
so, and I could imagine also blaming yourself for your husband's decision.
Yeah, I looked for how might that be true. Absolutely. But I know that that's not something that was unique to me. I know that that's something that pretty much every person close to someone who dies by suicide goes through, like friends, you know, even coworkers of just like, oh, why didn't I go for coffee with them that time that they asked? Maybe I could have shifted. So like, yeah, we're all looking for meaning of some sort.
And
But
that's
in
what our
this,
phone conversation was about when
right.
we had, you know, decided to do
Yeah.
this interview. Like, you know, I had expressed to you, and for the people who for my friends, my personal friends from my hometown who are listening
Right.
to this episode, this is for you guys. This is so, you know, this is so we can all like take that step back all these years later and realize that like the people that we have lost, not to call anybody out by name, but the people that we have lost due to suicide or drugs or poor mental health, because we've lost a lot of people in that town,
Yeah.
you know, it's not, you know, there's nothing that you could have done. There's nothing
Nothing.
that any of us could have done. That was ultimately
No.
their choice or decision
Yeah.
to make.
Yeah.
You know, things, the chips fell where they may,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It took months of therapy for me to, you know, till my therapist finally just said, like, there's nothing you could have done to keep him alive. Like, you're not God. And,
Right.
you know, if a person wants to die, they're going to die. And you know, I believe it, and I know it to be true too, because, you know, in my situation, I actually did stop him at one point. I didn't realize at the time that that might have been a suicide attempt, but I did actually have him, just like, I think 2 weeks before he died, I had him put in a hospital under what we in Canada call Form 1, which is basically, you know, it's, you know, they don't have a choice in that. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was afraid he might accidentally hurt himself or somebody else. I didn't
Right.
think, you know, because he never talked about wanting to die. Like, he never said, oh, I'm going to kill myself or I'd be better off dead. Like, nothing, no word about that.
Well,
But
rarely is that the case. We find in actual suicides that rarely does anybody go around saying that they're gonna
yeah,
do something.
yeah,
They may express that they have thought those things in the past, or
right,
that these things come up in my mind occasionally, but rarely anybody that's, not to say that
yeah,
you shouldn't check up on people that are
right.
saying that,
Yeah,
you
no,
know what
you
I mean?
definitely
But
should.
100%,
Yeah,
1000% should. But
yeah,
like, just statistically, you know, most people that are
right.
going to, it's not a call to ignore people that are saying it. It's a call to pay closer attention to the people who aren't.
Right, right.
Right.
Yeah, and also to know that, like, yeah, some people just don't talk about it and they do it anyways.
Right.
And so yeah, like when I had him admitted into the hospital, he talked his way out of it. He was like, you know, my wife's a bitch. She's mad at me. That's why she's doing this. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm fine. I shouldn't be here. And like, and I, you know, actually had him admitted. It was a Friday evening. And they called me on Sunday and they were like, we're going to release him. And I was like, can you wait till tomorrow morning and call his psychiatrist? Like, there's years of records and his diagnosis, and let the psychiatrist tell you what they think based on what they actually know, not what this guy. And like, I mean, he was completely psychotic at this point. So like, they're taking the word of a man who was completely psychotic. And they were like, sorry, we can't keep him. And they let him out. And sure enough, what does he do? Like, he goes, takes a bus, and he's calling me through all of this. Like, he called me from the bus station, and he's like, yeah, just checking in, what's going on? Like, nothing's happening. And I'm hearing something in the overhead, and it's like announcements. And I'm like, where are you? And he goes, oh, I'm just at the grocery store. It's like, clean up on aisle 9. And so I believed him. I was just like, all right, pick up some milk or whatever it was, And then he called me again a few hours later, and he's like, I just wanted to let you know, I just crossed the border and I'm going to New York. And he told me he's going to visit his high school friend, which I was like, okay, maybe that's good for him. And, a few days later, we were speaking every day. And then the night before he was supposed to come home, I thought I had convinced him, like, I'll pick you up from the bus station. We'll go to the hospital together. We'll get you checked out. We'll get you the treatment. He was in complete agreement. And then the next day he calls me to say goodbye, like right before he died. So yeah, like, there's no way to know. I know I did everything possible. But yeah, I'm still going like, oh, did I make sure he took his meds? Should I have let him leave the country? Should I have fought harder? Should, like all the different things of like, did I love him enough? Like, because so many times we think like, especially with depression, it's like, oh, someone's down, and it's like, but if I tell them a joke and I make them laugh, or a funny story, then there's hope. We get all excited. Look, they're smiling. And I remember his mom saying that even at one point of like, he was smiling the other day. And it's like, awesome. But that doesn't take away from like what's going on.
Right. Like, it's not something that it's something that you exist with 24/7. It doesn't mean it's written on your face all the time.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that like you don't have other things on your mind occasionally, but
and how many of us wear masks when we feel like crap, and we smile and pretend we don't? Like, we all do that. And he just got really skilled at that. So yeah, but yeah, that guilt was there. And it was the therapist just saying that I was like, yeah, you know what? I did do everything. Like, I even had him admitted, and the hospital let him out. Like, if I want to blame anyone, I can blame them. But like, we don't know. Like, they're following their protocols. I'm doing what I can. And, now I know my job was just to love him, which I did do. But, yeah, we can't keep people alive when they don't want to be.
Right. So now, how do you get through going from that, making all these unhealthy decisions and covering that up, to making the decision to come to light with that? That was where we had started.
To be talking with you. Yeah.
Right.
So lots of work around that, personal work. I was doing this coaching course in addition to all the different forms of therapy I was doing. So, really working on myself and realizing this is not my shame to carry. Like, that was a big piece of my learning of like stigma around suicide and mental illness only, like in my case, only existed because I believed there was something wrong with his suicide and his mental illness. But as soon as I realized, like, no, this is something that happens, like this is a disease of the brain, and it basically just eats away at the brain until people like lose their survival instinct, essentially. Like, because you have to think that by the time somebody's reaching that point where they're making the choice of like, I think I'm going to actually do this, like they've overridden that survival instinct. But like, we're all like, we live our lives based on like just staying alive. So, realizing that there's not shame, this was a disease. And I made this decision that like, this was something to be ashamed of. So as soon as after doing all of my work, I could see that like, yeah, this is not something that I should be ashamed of. Like there's no shame. He died of a disease essentially. And then I made the choice to tell my kids, and which was terrifying because, almost 11 years had passed. My 7 and 4-year-olds were now 15 and 18. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to, tell them and they're never going to speak to me again. But that wasn't true. That was just my fear speaking. And they took it great. They were really, they were very understanding. And they said,
that's a much more powerful, before we lose it, that's a much
Yeah.
more powerful sentence than people realize, that was your fear speaking. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
people don't realize how loud the voice of your fear is.
Yes.
And it's lying to you most of
Yes.
the time.
I say that all the time, that fear is a liar, because it will take you to worst case scenario, which 99% of the time does not happen.
So how did your
And
kids react?
they took it beautifully, actually. Like, it was, I mean, I was very intentional about, it wasn't like,
Hey
I'm
guys,
cooking
what's
dinner
up?
and then
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, you know what, I'm going to tell them now. Like, this was very planned out. And I do want to say as well, like, I had a lot of support around me, that helped me through my healing, and that's a big piece of it too, where I was choosing these people, romantically, who were incapable of loving me because of their own stuff. I didn't realize, actually, until I started coaching and found this world of, these empaths and people who were not judgmental. It's like, oh, wow, there's a whole side of the world that exists that I didn't even know of people that are not going to judge you based on these things, that don't believe mental illness is a dirty little secret.
Well, you had to go
And
find them, you know?
yes, no, 100%. But, and again, it's a choice. It's like, I can choose to keep perpetuating this, path that I've been taking and these patterns, or I can choose something new. And, just starting to pay attention to, like, okay, who is out there, and seeing who's supporting me, and who, and who's there that I can say all this stuff that, like, I'm judging myself about, and they're not judging me. And they're not saying, like, yeah, you're broken, something's wrong with you, like, stay away. They're totally accepting, going like, yeah, well, that sucks, and life is shitty, and it deals with some really interesting things, and that doesn't make you who you are. That just is something that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so really getting that support group together, because they were very big. Like, I told them that I wanted to tell my kids. I had set like a date a month in advance. We had, Zoom calls. We were using Zoom before the pandemic as coaches.
Yeah.
And so, had the call, was very intentional. Then, that day I decided, called my kids up for dinner, said, I got to tell you something about your dad before we eat. Something I wish I had told you from the beginning, but we didn't, but I want you to know now. And I told them, and they were both like, we wished we had known from the beginning, and we understand why you did what you did. I mean, they knew how the family, both sides carried shame or hid shame, and certain things we don't talk, we don't talk about that. And things that, like, every family's got their family secrets, and and just recognizing, like, the kind of family secrets that we had, that's just like, well, why can't we talk about that?
Well, we don't realize that our parents are people until we're their age.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I don't have any children myself, but I'm 31. So for my mom, I would have been 11 or 10. So, like, that's insane for me to think about.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane for me to think about that. I would have had a 10-year-old had I had a child the same age as she was. I remember being like 9 and being like, haha, you're 30. And then I turned 30 and she's like, haha, you're 30. Like one good trick deserves another. Right. You forget that they're human beings. And especially as you get older and start, I think it's really important to bond as you age, to form a more close relationship with your parents as equals on this earth, as you're both adult people. And my like I said, my dad's has never been around, which has led to lots of questions and conversations and arguments over the time with my mother. And now we're at a point where we're very open and honest with each other about everything, about things that people don't normally talk about with their parents. And I think it's more healthy to be that way, because she has the wisdom of a mother, but also can be like, hey, I did this stupid thing when in 1984, you know what I mean? And like, and we can share those stories and laugh with each other, and not have to be like maybe how our grandparents' generation was, where it's like, I did no wrong ever, and I paid my tithes, I went to church every Sunday, every single Sunday, and I never missed it. And I don't drink. This is orange juice. There's no vodka in here.
And you might have thought you saw me doing something, but you saw
were wrong. You
Right.
were wrong. That's not what happened.
Right. So
I didn't smoke a cigarette. I was holding it for your father.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he asked me to hold it because he was tying his shoes. That wasn't my cigarette. I don't smoke. You know what I mean? Like,
and never tried. Yes.
no, I never tried. I never tried.
Right.
Weed is the same thing as heroin. Just want to let you know. Same classification. You know, like, so we're lucky that we don't live in that anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
So how did you become a coach?
So I mean, I was doing the coaching all through that. And so I tell my kids, they're very accepting. And then I realized at that point, like, you know, maybe I need to be talking about my story. Like, and it felt like I need to, you know, I wanted to help the people who are in the same situation that I was in, that I struggled with, and say, like, you know what, like, I did it that way, and it's not the right way to do it. Like, you know, learn from everything I did and do the opposite is essentially it. But I just realized, like, for me, it felt very purposeful and meaningful. And so I said to my kids, like, you know, what do you think about that? Because yes, like, after we shared that, and, you know, they asked all their questions, and I promised them no more lies. We're going to be totally upfront. And so, we have the relationship now that you're talking about, that you have with your mom. And, you know, they were like, do it, Mom. And they've been my biggest cheerleaders, my biggest supporters through all of that. And so, and, you know, they see, like, they're just like, yeah, like, you know, this happened and it was crappy, and yes, you can help people. So do it.
Right. And
so that's really how I got to that place of, you know, just like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to coach. And so, you know, leaving my corporate job happened shortly after, and, you know, just kind of jumped out and started slowly telling people in my world, like, the truth that I felt safe with, and, like, seeing, okay, how's their reaction? And, you know, and of course it was received very well. And again, you know, my fear was lying to me all along. Mm-hmm. And then realizing, okay, now I want to put it out there and just tell everybody, because my husband and I grew up together. You know, Facebook wasn't around yet. I think it came out just shortly after he died. And now, by, you know, 11 years later, I have, you know, hundreds of friends that we both grew up with and that we knew in our married life. And it was like, okay, so how do I tell everyone? Well, what's the best way to do it?
Facebook.
Post it on Facebook. Right. So that's what I did. I put out a post saying, you know, here, and it was World Mental Health Day. And I was like, here's my story. And I just told them, and I was like, I know people thought he died in an accident, and this is what happened. And I realized that, you know, I want to, you know, there's a Maya Angelou quote that's, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better.
Right.
And so I quoted that, and I was like, and now I realize that, like, this happened to me, and I can help people that are in this situation because I know what it's like. Like, yes, my story is mine, and everyone's got their own path, but I get it. And, you know, and I know, like, the loneliness and the isolation that I felt from not being able to talk about it. And even the people that knew what was going on, they had zero frame of reference for, like, how to even deal with that. So, you know, it was not the right kind of support that I got. Mm-hmm. So just saying, like, you know what, I've been through it and I'm different. Like, yes, you can go for counseling, you can go for coaching, you can do whatever with somebody that's trained. Well, I'm trained and I have this lived experience. So, like, you know, anything that you're feeling, I have probably felt, which makes a very big difference, you know, to people, because we all want to know, first of all, that, you know, we're not crazy for thinking what we're thinking. And we also want to know that we're not the only person that's thinking that. So, and there are other people going through the same thing. And it was wild, because after I put that Facebook post out, like, you know, I was terrified to do it. I was like, oh my God, what are people going to say? And I was just flooded by loving comments and, like, people calling me, emailing me, you know, people I didn't even know, because, like, people were sharing it with friends that they knew that were going through something like that. Mm-hmm. And how many Me Too's I got. And it was like, okay, I have to do this. Like, I don't even have
Yeah.
a choice. There's no backing out now, because people are saying like, thank you for your courage and thank you for speaking up. And this is what I'm hiding. And it wasn't even just about mental illness. Like, we all wear so many masks. Like, I feel like so many of us are carrying secrets that and like, there's one thing about being a private person and being okay with it, but when it's a secret that you're carrying and you're making yourself wrong or less than for carrying that, like, it shouldn't be that way. And like, when we're not accepting ourselves and realizing like, oh my God, there's so many people that need to, that are so glad and relieved that I spoke up. And it was like, okay, I just need to keep doing that. And every single time I do, I get people saying, thank you. Like, this is my story. This is what I'm hiding. And they're so happy to be able to just get it out of them. It's like, I can't talk to anyone. So yeah, that drives me now every day, of just knowing that I'm helping people in one way or another.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to help people and make a living doing so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a really wonderful thing. People, I say people a lot, and I feel bad sometimes because I like think of Trump being like, lots of people say things. They say things about me, and they're the best things.
Right.
But yeah, I don't mean it in that
It's a
connotation.
great impression, by the way.
I do my best. But so like, oh man, now I lost it. No, so I feel like a lot of people don't understand that when you pay for something, you value it.
Yes.
If you give something for free, people will throw it away. It's like, here, take this flyer and throw it away from me when you're in the street peddling and peddling and peddling and stuff like that. Like, I went on a walk and handed out business cards, and it was like, okay, right. Like,
right.
there's nobody cares.
Right.
But when people actually come in and pay for your services and they do this evaluation, they're like, oh, risk versus reward. This is definitely worth it for me.
Yeah.
Now, how do I continue to pay for this service that benefits me? And then they do the things from the education, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when I have people that come to me for pain, and they come and see me again, and it's like, oh, like I'll do a trigger point, because you can relate physical to emotional very well.
Oh yeah.
So let's say I have somebody coming in for a deep tissue trigger point. They have an issue, they have a problem, they have a pain, they have a pattern, they have something that needs releasing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a frou-frou spa massage therapy treatment. It's okay, where is this shooting to? Okay, I'm in your back and it's shooting into your neck. What's your level of discomfort between a 1 and a 10? Oh, 7? Okay, I don't want it to go above a 6. And it's like, they're coming in for this, and now they're getting stretched, and they're getting released, and they're getting cups, and they're getting all
right.
And it's like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm a people mechanic. Like, I'm working on you. I'm working on the issue. Now here's what you have to do at home.
Right.
So they pay me for my service, and then they leave, they don't do the homework, and they come back and they have the same level.
Right.
And then it's like, well, you didn't put the work in. You have, this is a two-way street. You're paying me for my services, but you have to go home and do the things in order to see the healing.
Right.
All I can do is facilitate your body. And the same way, all you can do is facilitate their emotional state to change. They have to actually go and do the change. And when you're paying for a service, or you have somebody with more intelligence, or not intelligence, but knowledge in the subject than you, or who has more experience in that area than you, and you're paying for their time, and you value that, and you take their advice. Yeah. So the amount of people that come in and do the stuff at home is so much greater than the people who ignore your advice entirely. Yeah. Which is why I feel like a lot of places where it's not a premium rate, you get people that just, it's cyclical. I come in every month for my feel-good massage, and that's the end of it. Right. And it takes away a little bit from what we're capable of. Now, and the same thing as a coach, you're not a psychiatrist, you're not giving people medication, yet you can have these amazing results with with your clientele. Yeah. And I think it goes to show that, like, there's so much more that we can do outside of just prescribing a pill.
100%. And I think, what you're speaking to, and the work that I do, it's about empowering people. Like, you can keep coming to me and having these 1-hour sessions, and we can talk about it, and then you can go home and not do anything. But then it's this dependency. And that's not what I want. Like, I want you to have, yes, I want to be there and support you. And I want to give you the tools that you can use in between the sessions, which it sounds like you're doing the same thing of just like, you actually are in command of what's happening with your physical and your emotional and mental body. And we're giving you tools, use them. Like, but there's also, something to be said of like, some people are not ready to do that deep work.
Right.
And, and the people that come to me generally, like if they're not ready to do something about their life, I say like, maybe therapy is better for you, because therapy is more focused on the healing piece of things,
Right.
and just staying in place. Whereas coaching is very much about, it's about moving you forward. It's like, okay, where are you today? Where do you want to be? And I can be that support person, and I'm going to give you a lot of tools that are going to empower you. But ultimately, I want you to be able to live your own life, like not have to come to me, years later about this same problem. Like, I want you to keep growing. And then like, as a coach, it's like, when you reach the next level, if you say, yeah, I want you to keep coaching me and let's get to, let's go even further. Now I've got these new goals. Great. But yeah, where I'm starting with people, it's the people who kind of reach that point where just like, most of my clientele either have family members that have severe mental illness or addictions, and they're just, getting lost in this relationship, don't know what to do. They're trying to fix it. And it's just like, no, just take care of you, because first of all, they don't want you to fix it. They just want you to love them. And second of all, like, you're not taking care of yourself, so you're completely depleted. And your goal is to be, fill your own cup. And then when you're overflowing, you actually have something to give to that person, rather
Right.
than being depleted, because we get resentful when we're depleted. So it's like, how do you think you're loving your family member when you're just like, oh, here you go again, you're in another bad mood, or you won't get out of bed and I have to take care of everybody? And I've been in that place. I know what it's like, being completely depleted. And they're like, yeah, I kind of am there. And it's like, okay, so here's the plan. Or I'm working with people that have their own mental health challenges. It could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be ADHD. And yeah, they, many of them are on medication and being supervised by a doctor. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't need to be everything. Like, we have been conditioned to think that, the pills will make it better. And if the pills don't, then you're just not on the right dosage or the right pill. So let's try something else, and we'll keep going with that. But in the meantime, many people are not feeling better because they don't realize there are lifestyle changes you have to make too, and mindset shifts.
Right,
And
the pills are
that's what
supposed to
I do.
facilitate those lifestyle
Right.
changes instead of just like letting you
Right.
coast,
Right.
And
Yeah.
so many people just take the pill and they're like, well, it's a pill.
I'm on meds, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're wondering like, oh, why am I depressed again? And I know I've been there, and, and I went on meds too. Like, there was one point where I was sleeping like more than 12 hours a day. And, it was like, and that's, the point where, I was an entrepreneur at this point. I'd left corporate, and it was like, I went to my doctor. I was like, I can't afford to take 3-hour naps every afternoon on top of, the 12 hours I was sleeping at night, or 10 hours, whatever it is. And so I went on the meds to get me out of that rut. And then it was like, okay, now I need to start changing what I'm eating and looking at the foods that weigh me down, that make me feel sluggish and make me want to take a nap. I have to start exercising and moving more and building my metabolism up. I need supports, I need nature, and like so many other things, and tools and mindfulness. And it's like, now that I'm doing all of that, I was able to go off the meds. I was like, I don't need this, because I wake up every day feeling amazing and excited. And it's just like, okay, what do I get to do today? So
Right.
without the meds. And so, sometimes people still need to continue the meds. Like, I'm all for that if that's what you and your doctor decide. But that doesn't need to be the only thing. You're going to feel so much more empowered when you know you're not relying on a pill to get you through your day.
Right. Giving people options isn't the enemy, letting people know that letting people
Right.
letting people know that there's options is not like, yeah, there was a little hiccup there. It's okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
letting people know that there are options is like not a bad thing. Like we had said before, language is such a factor. We shame people so much for just saying what they believe. Oftentimes it's like, like the whole big is beautiful thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, great. Like, celebrate yourself, but also like be honest about your health. Like, if you're 300
Right.
pounds, there's a problem.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There's an issue.
Yeah.
It's not going to last. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like how good you feel right now at 25 and 300 pounds. It's not because you're 300 pounds and there's nothing wrong with it. It's because you're 25.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Wait till you're 28. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden
Or
things are going
40.
to, right? But
Yeah.
even then, like,
Yeah.
if it's just a continuation of
Right.
previous patterns. And I was a big dude.
Right.
I was 250.
Yeah.
You know, I was a
Yeah.
big guy.
Yeah.
I felt
Yeah.
like trash every
Right.
single day.
Right.
I remember at points, I remember the lunch truck would come in twice a day. I was an apprentice mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
and the roach coach, as they call them, would come in twice a day, and you'd have just crap food that was on it, candy
Yeah.
and cakes and coffee with sugar and milk and
Right.
and different sodas and pizzas and Chinese food in the back and whatever he had picked up from wherever that day. And you have something at 10 o'clock when you're during your coffee break, and then you have something again in the afternoon, and then by the end of the day you want to die. I remember after the coffee
Right.
break, I had like cake and a Red Bull or some crap like that.
Right.
And this is how I used to eat, like cake and a Red Bull and like some kind of egg wrap or whatever the hell. And I'm
Right.
smoking
Right.
cigarettes as I'm
Yeah.
working on something. I
Yeah.
remember legitimately like being half asleep underneath the I remember jobs we were doing that whole week too. We had like, I worked at Chevy, and there was a recall on like the skip plates underneath the cars where
Mhm.
when you did an oil change, there was like a hole for the oil filter, but
Yeah.
oil would collect right underneath the exhaust manifold and catch fire.
Oh.
So their fix for that was like just cut that piece of plastic out. And I remember I had an air hammer with a special attachment that would like and cut through the plastic. And I remember like being so exhausted from having to just hold up this, like, I don't know, with the hose, maybe 10 pounds,
Right.
And like, that was what was like, okay, I gotta turn my life around, but like, I'm afraid to go to the gym, and Kung Fu's really cool. So I went on Google Maps, and I was ready to end my own life at this point.
Mm.
I was so big. I was smoking three packs of cigarettes a day.
Wow.
I was, I hated myself, you know what I mean?
Sure.
There was other emotional things and self-identification issues happening. I did not know who I was, who I wanted to be, where I was going with my life. I was selling weed. I was considering selling cocaine. I was doing cocaine, and
Yeah.
and it was like, that's the road I could take, because maybe like crime and drugs and depravity is just easier. It's just
Right.
easier. It's like, I could do something illegal and I could make a whole bunch of money real quick, and then I could go blow it all and have an amazing memory and like make up for this shit life that I have. That was the decision that I had made. I was like, if I don't find something that's going to turn me out of this situation right now, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because people, and it was an honest decision. I just so happened to find the thing that made me realize that like that was a bad call,
Right. Right.
and unless you've been there and unless you've walked it, people don't
Yeah.
understand what it's like to be on the other side of it. I often describe that to people, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe. And it's like, no, dude, like that was like 10 years ago. Like, what?
Right.
Like,
Right.
like, I was in my mother's house. I was in the backyard. I was living, with my grandmother was still alive. I was living with her in Kings Park and my aunt. And I worked out I live on Long Island. So I was like on the west end of the island where I was living, and I worked more eastern, and my mother's house was more eastern on Long Island. So I had taken lunch there, after work, I had went there to eat. Nobody was here. I knew nobody was home. I had gotten out early, and I wanted to make some food. And I remember being so depressed, just so down. And I had like smoked a bunch of pot, thinking that it was going to make me feel better, but it just fed into the depression and the paranoia. And I was like, I don't want to feel like this ever again. I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore, because I had already made the decision. I was like trying to figure out how I was going to do it.
Right.
I was at the stages of like, okay. And it's terrifying for people who have never experienced it to think about. But when you're in it, you're kind of just like, it's like deciding what you want to wear that day. It's like, okay, well, I could do this. That's how that guy did it. But that's fucked up. And then people are going to think, I don't want to give people the wrong impression. Should I leave a note? I want people
Right.
to know why I'm doing this, so that like
Right.
they don't have to wonder, or nobody has to be in too much pain, because I know it's really selfish and like they're going to be
Right.
really hurt, but like I don't care because I'm fucking done being alive. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm just
Yeah.
done. The same way like you're having a crappy conversation and you're like done, you say
Right.
the same thing about life. You're like done,
Yeah.
done. Don't
Yeah.
want to do it anymore. Have no desire to do this shit. And I had said that to myself, and I was like, unless for like my parents' sake, you know, I can find something that gives me purpose
Mm-hmm.
and maybe turns this body around, you know? And I Google mapped Kung Fu, and my teacher, whose first name I never use, I refer to him by rank all the time. He's Sigong. That's his rank in my New York accent. My bad Chinese in my New York accent, but that's his rank. And he calls me up. Yeah, my name's Greg. You can come try a class on Wednesday. And I remember I was out with my friends one night, and I was like, somebody offered me a free Kung Fu class tomorrow. Should I like go try it out? And they were like, you would be dumb if you didn't. And I didn't miss a class for 3 months. 5 days a week after that point for 3 months, because it was like so different and so new, and like I needed to take a risk. I needed to take a plunge. I have
Yeah.
psoriasis, and it was at its height of awfulness and discomfort at that time. I was covered. I have what's called guttate psoriasis, which is
Mm.
droplet psoriasis. So on top of this, I have this physical manifestation of what's going on inside, on the
Yeah.
outside of my body. Doctors didn't know what was going on. I was going from dermatologist to dermatologist to dermatologist till I finally, with my fourth dermatologist, 3 months of scabies treatments, steroid creams, different kinds of shit that nobody knew what was going on. Not to ramble, but like I was covered in these patches. So I remember I went in long sleeves and long pants,
Wow.
and I cover, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like I still have a little bit, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like it started to come off my forearms, and I started to go in t-shirts, and you know what I mean? We don't wear shorts there because we don't want to scrape shins and bleed all over each other, you
Right.
know, if we're doing anything like that.
Right.
And then the uniform, once I got a uniform, the uniform is pants. So it the shorts thing just wasn't, it wasn't
Right.
like a decision like that. It just didn't happen. But I go to the gym in shorts, and I still have patches on my legs. So they're just not as severe. And I've
Right.
gotten to the point where like, I don't care. And what was one of my decisions that I wanted to end my life was because I didn't want to be viewed. I had gone out in shorts at one point, and people were like, what the fuck is all over your legs? And I didn't want to hear that ever again. Now, if anybody says that to me, they're in trouble. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's
Like
like,
they're
what the
going to
fuck's
get,
wrong with you that you would
yeah,
say
well,
that
yeah,
out
like,
loud?
who are you that you would even say that
Right.
to me? Like, what's the
Right.
matter with
Right.
what? Now I
Yeah.
see that it's their sickness and not
Right.
mine.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I needed to take the plunge and take the risk and commit financially, physically, mentally, and emotionally to something that was going to pull me out of this rut and
Yeah.
this insanity that I had
Yeah.
convinced myself of. And, you know, that doesn't necessarily even just speak to, you know, getting to the point where you want to end your life. It gets to the point where, you know, you're
Yeah.
just really depressed. Life just
Yeah.
sucks. You're just unhappy. You
Yeah.
just don't feel good in your own skin. You don't like how you look when you look at yourself in the mirror. Any of that. It's all the same formula.
Yeah.
It's effort plus discipline plus consistency equals result.
Yes. Plus commitment.
Yeah, well, that's discipline,
Yeah.
commitment, same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
Like,
yeah, because you have to want it.
yes,
Like, that's what I mean. I know for me, like, I want it badly enough that I will be disciplined about it. I will do it every day, you know, whatever it takes, because I want this for me. And that's, yeah, such a huge shift.
right. So, how has life changed for you now?
It's like it's probably easier for me to tell you what has not changed, because
Right.
yeah, there's more things. I think everything has changed. You know, just my life is just, it's lighter, it's easier, it's more pleasurable. I mean, like, yes, I have my ups and downs, but like, I'm not living in this dark place of shame all the time, and just like building this whole life around that shame, and avoiding touching it but still touching it anyways. So, you know, it's very rewarding. It feels purposeful and meaningful, and I want, you know, I want it for everyone else. I'm just like, you got to know, like, you know, like people think like it's hard to change. It's like how you're living is hard. You don't get that until you're on the other side and you're like, oh my God, that was exhausting to live that way. Like choices are so much easier because it's just like, okay, what do I feel is right for me? Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm not going like, well, what's this person going to think and that person, and then having to do it and then not feeling good about me. Like that part is freaking exhausting.
It's like not knowing you're dehydrated till you drink water, you know?
Right.
And you're like, oh
Right.
my God, I guess I was really dehydrated. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, look, I have so much more energy now that I've actually had that glass of water and I'm feeling great. And so, and that's exactly what it's like. And so, yeah, like living every day, just, you know, I love sitting down for work, you know, whereas before it was just like, oh God, I got to go into work, you know, and not liking what I did, but it was just like, yeah, but I need this job. And it's just like, no, I do it. And like, you know, I made a lot more money in the corporate world than I make in coaching. And yet I have never been happier. And that's the thing that I realized, like, no, for me, the happiness is so much more important. And I also know I can make that level of money if I'm willing to commit to it. You know, it's possible. And you know what, I'm going to try and I'm going to do what it takes. And that's exciting too. Like, it's not, you know, it's all
the money that you're bringing in is a representation of how many people you're helping.
Right.
That's what it ends up boiling down to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's not like, oh, you made some great sale and, you know, like you got a really low price on, I don't know, soybeans. You know what I mean? Like you bought low and sold high and like, good for you, you know, like, yeah, I'm sure. Well, like, everybody in those industries is probably like raging right now. Like that helps out everybody. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, great. But like,
all services have value, but yes.
All services have, we get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But like for you personally, for what you want out of your life and for what you're doing, it is more fulfilling.
Yes.
So it, again, boils down to the individual. You have to do what you find fulfilling. For me, I find getting kicked in the face fulfilling, apparently. You know what I mean? Like
I have a son like that too. He does Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So yes, I get that.
Exactly.
I get that motivation.
It's not denying your primal nature, you know?
Yeah.
You have this side of you, and this is why fitness and nutrition is so important. It's like, because you weren't meant to sit on your ass and play video games all day in the same way that you weren't meant to live off of processed foods.
Right. Yeah.
You need to put in what you're getting out. And the whole point of, like, you know, supplementation and this is XYZ and, you know, working out, even just going for a walk or a little bit more fitness, you know, like, and then you have people who like don't realize they can until they do, like my brother. Right. My brother is a heavier kid, and when he started training was over 300 pounds. Oh, excuse me. When he started training was over 300 pounds, and we call him Sammo Hung. Are you familiar with who Sammo Hung is? Sammo Hung is one of Bruce Lee's training brothers. And he's in all the old Kung Fu movies, and he's still acting now. And he does a lot more wire work now than he used to, but he's always been very portly. He's always been very round and very portly. And back flips, back handsprings, front handsprings, jumping, spinning, whatever, crazy stunts, awesome fight scenes, insane action, all done by him. And, you know, and then obviously after Bruce Lee passed, he had a lot of movies with Jackie Chan, this one, so we call him Sammo Hung because he's got this unbelievable fighting capability and this incredible natural movement, but then the stamina's not there. And it's like, well, that's because you need to do XYZ. You need to run more. You need to eat better. And like, then all of a sudden he started doing that, and now all his stuff is improving, you know? So it's like, you know, it's right there. Some people don't realize that they have these abilities and these talents, and all they have to do is just do. You just do the thing, you know? Stop thinking about the thing and just go do the thing. You know?
Just go. Yes.
Do the thing that makes you happy and forget what everybody else around you is going to say.
Yeah.
You know, how many people thought it was crazy that you would leave the corporate world to start a coaching?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I also was just like, okay, I left, you know, this great title where everyone was like, oh, that's what you do, to like, oh, you're a coach, like another life coach, you know?
Right.
And now I'm just like, yeah, they just probably don't understand. Like, and I don't even feel I need to explain it, because
you don't,
I know the value I bring. And like, sometimes I sit there thinking like,
you just
really have you changed a life today?
You know what I mean? Send them the link to the episode. Be like, I told
my
story
and that's
here,
it. It's like, you know, and they see, but I think, you know, they get it. It's just like, yeah, I'm living it. I don't need to prove it to anybody. And that's a big piece of it too, of just like, when you love who you are and you love what you're doing and you value yourself, you don't need to convince anybody else that you have that value. It's like, if they don't see it, all right, they're just not my people. Like, that's cool. I don't need to be loved by everyone. I used to be such a people pleaser and like, love me, like me, and it's like, all right, you're not my person. Cool.
Right. And then
like,
all of a sudden
best
your
of
tribe starts
luck.
to gravitate. Yeah.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, but your tribe can totally identify who you are. And they're just like, yeah, I want to be around you. We think the same way. And then suddenly it's like, okay. And none of it matters. But yeah, like the worrying, spending our lives worrying about pleasing everybody else. It's like, you're only doing that because you're not pleased with you. Once you become happy with yourself, you don't give a shit what anybody else is.
No.
Like, and that's really it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's freedom on its own, of just like, oh, you disagree? Cool. You're entitled to your opinion. Great.
Right.
Like, I'm not even angry. Like, I don't need to, cool.
Right.
Like,
that's what you think? Cool.
right.
How'd you get to that? Are you proving me
like,
wrong about something?
yeah,
Because then show
like,
me the proof, and then
right. Or I'm
Yeah.
open to hearing a different opinion, and maybe I'll change, maybe I won't, but it doesn't even matter. It doesn't factor into my daily life now. And that's the thing, where like everything but used to be designed around that. Now it's like, it doesn't even factor in. It's just like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
So where can people reach you?
So I'm all over the internet. and just like, while I am physically in Canada, most of my clients actually are in the US. I've been using Zoom since pre-pandemic, before anyone knew what it was. So you can find me through my website, which is michelleanhangcoaching.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm all over the place. Michelle Anhang Coaching, you can find me.
You spell that for people just so
Yes, sure. It's Michelle with 2 L's, and my last name is Anhang.
All right. So thanks for, do you have any Instagram or anything like that?
I do have
use?
Instagram. Yes, Michelle Anhang Coaching. Yeah.
So Michelle
I'm
Anhang
everywhere.
Coaching.
I'm not
all
on TikTok.
over
My kids won't let me.
I'm not on TikTok either. I can't get
they're
Instagram
like,
has Reels is good enough for me.
Yeah. They tell me I'm too old. They're like, you can't do it. Don't be one of those moms. I'm like, fine.
Oh, not even that. Did you hear about TikTok sending our information back to China?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, you know what? Whether it's true or not, see you later,
Right.
buddy.
But I don't know. Did you watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
I did not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So like Facebook, Google on its own, like Google searches, go. That's going to give you, you're going to want to like go off the grid.
All right. So leaving us with some links and some Netflix recommendations. I
Right.
know you had to go at an hour.
I try to help. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you on. All right. So I'm going to cut the recording. And thanks everybody for listening. Guys, if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/TemplePodcast or go to anchor.fm/TemplePodcast. And you can use either website to show your support for the show and help me continue doing what I love. Please check out Michelle's work. And thanks again for coming on. And anytime you want to come back, you just let me know. All right?
Awesome. Thanks
so much. I'll talk to you soon.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.